Welcome, you beautiful people. I am Mama Magic Fantastic, and thank you for joining me for a new Commander combo tech. Today, we'll be discussing Zellix, Sanity Flayer, a new commander from the Commander Legends 2 Battle for Baldur's Gate Commander Precon decks. It's a 2/3 legendary creature horror for 2 and a blue with Hive Mind. Whenever a player mills 1 or more creature cards, you create a 1/1 black horror creature token. It also has an activated ability for 1 and tap target player mills 3 cards. Zellix also has the choose a background mechanic. Now we're going to jump into our first combo, Blue Creature Mill. To use this combo, we're going to utilize Sage's Row Denizen, a 2/3 Vidalcan wizard for 2 and a blue, with whenever another blue creature enters the battlefield under your control, target player mills 2 cards. Now, you might have noticed Zellix does not create blue creatures. They create black horrors. Therefore, we're going to need to use a spell or ability that changes the color text on a card. To change the word black to blue on Zellix, in order to accomplish this, we need cards such as Sleight of Mind, which is an instant that says change the text of target spell or permanent by replacing all instances of one color word with another. For example, you may change target black spell to target blue spell. This effect lasts indefinitely. So, it's a permanent change as long as the affected card is on the stack or remains in play. However, if it leaves play, it will no longer be affected by the word change. Now, with this color changing ability, it allows us to have Zellix create a 1/1 blue horror creature token instead of 1/1 black horror creature tokens. So all we need to do is have a blue creature, such as the blue horror creature token, enter the battlefield. The Sage's Row Denizen will see a blue creature and cause a player to mill 2 cards. Hopefully, one of those cards will be a creature, which will trigger Zellix to create a blue horror creature token, which would trigger the Sage's Row Denizen, which will cause a player to mill 2 cards, which hopefully one of those cards will be a creature, thus perpetuating the loop until we no longer mill a creature. There are other cards besides Sleight of Mind which can permanently change the color text of a card, such as Thought Lace, Alter Reality, Crystal Spray, Glamour Dye, Mind Bend, Spectral Shift, or Swirl the Mists. However, I don't recommend using Whim of Roll Wrap or Trait Doctoring, as those have effects that only last until the end of turn. There is also Painter's Servant, a creature that changes the color of all permanents, so long as it's on the battlefield. Just don't confuse yourself by adding Magical Hack into your deck. It only changes a land type, not color. Now let's move on to our second combo with Zellix. This combo utilizes creatures of a certain type entering the battlefield to mill. You need one of our mill payoffs and a creature type changing spell or ability. Our first creature type mill card is Halimar Excavator, a 1/3 human wizard ally for 1 and a blue, with whenever Halimar Excavator or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, target player mills X cards, where X is the number of allies you control. Our second creature type mill card is Thieves Guild Enforcer, a 1/1 human rogue for a single black mana. It has flash, and whenever Thieves Guild Enforcer or another rogue enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 2 cards. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, Thieves Guild Enforcer gets +2/+1 and has Death Touch, but we don't really care about that last part. Now, we need to change it so that the horror token Zellix make would either be an ally or rogue. We can change the word horror to either ally or rogue on Zellix with Artificial Evolution, an instant that works much like Sleight of Mind, except it changes creature type instead of color. We also have Arcane Adaptation, Masquerade Nexus, and Conspiracy, that are artifacts or enchantments that sit on the battlefield and change all creature types. Now that Zellix is creating allies and rogues instead of horrors, we can start a mill loop, just like in our first combo. The third combo using Zellix needs only one other card, Altar of the Brood. This is an artifact for 1 of any color that says whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills a card. All you need is one permanent, such as a horror creature token, to enter the battlefield under your control to start a self-feeding loop to mill your opponents. So long as one of those cards is a creature, we can continue the loop. Our fourth combo utilizes effects that mill when a creature dies. All we need is Zellix, a mill on creature dying card, and any creature sacrifice outlet. Our first mill on creature dying card is Zellix Occultist, a 2/3 human rogue for 2 and a blue that says whenever Zellix Occultist or another creature dies, target player mills a card. Our second mill on creature dying card is Extractor Demon, a 5/5 demon for 4 and 2 black, with flying, and whenever another creature leaves the battlefield, you may have target player mill 2 cards. It also has Unearth, but we don't need to worry about that. In order to get our loop going, we need to start sacrificing our horror tokens, so that the Zellix Occultist or Extractor Demon will see a creature die, thus causing a player to mill a card. The best sacrifice outlet we have is Altar of Dementia, an artifact for 2 of any color that says sacrifice a creature, target player mills cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. This powerful sacrifice engine can also feed itself by milling and potentially allowing Zellix to create another horror that can be sacrificed to the altar, creating a mill loop. The next best sacrifice outlets are the artifacts Ashnod's Altar and Phyrexian Altar. Both cost 3 of any color and say sacrifice a creature, add 2 colorless to your mana pool, or add 1 mana of any color respectively. So, what are we going to do with all this mana we're generating from sacrificing our horrors? We're going to use it to activate Zellix multiple times to mill our opponent 3 cards each time. Cards like Faces of the Past, which is an enchantment that says whenever a creature dies, tap all untapped creatures that share a creature type with it, or untap all tapped creatures that share a creature type with it. Since Zellix is also a horror, whenever one of the horror tokens dies, if Zellix is tapped, we can untap Zellix. Then we can use the mana from the altars to activate Zellix and mill again, hopefully hitting a creature to create a horror, which will cause Zellix to untap, which we can activate again by sacrificing the new horror to the altar again. Alternatively, we can use the enchantment Intruder Alarm, which says creatures don't untap during their controller's untap steps, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield, untap all creatures. Be careful if Mesmeric Orb is on the battlefield. This artifact says whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card. You have the potential to mill yourself out, which might not actually be the worst thing in this deck, as it could lead to our next combo. Now we come to the actual infinite loop in this deck. If you manage to mill all the cards in your deck, and you're not planning on winning with something like Laboratory Maniac or Thassa's Oracle, which both should be in this deck, you can create an infinite loop using a creature that has a self-shuffle ability on it, like Blightsteel Colossus or Dread. So long as this is the last card in your deck, you can keep milling a creature that will go back into your deck, which you can mill again each time, guaranteeing Zellix will create a horror creature token. You can do this infinite times to create an infinite number of tokens to do as your heart contends. Milling isn't the only way Zellix can win. You can win by draining your opponent's life also. As of now, we haven't chosen a background, but I highly recommend Agent of the Iron Throne, a legendary enchantment background for 2 and a black, with commander creatures you own have whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. Using the same sacrifice outlets from earlier, with this background in play, every time we sacrifice a horror, we get to ping our opponents for 1 point of damage. We can combine this with Mindcrank, an artifact for 2 of any color, that has, whenever an opponent loses life, that player mills that many cards. all you need is a sacrifice outlet, and you can start a potential loop of sacrificing a horror, deal 1 damage, Mind Crank will trigger, which will cause your opponent to mill a card, which, if it's a creature, will cause you to create a horror for you to sacrifice to deal 1 damage, and so on and so on. We can get added damage benefits by having Bloodchief Ascension, Sir Conrad the Grim, Dreadhound, or Duskmantle Guildmage with its first ability activated on the battlefield whenever we mill our opponents. Each of these cards will cause extra ping damage to your opponents. Bear in mind that Bloodchief Ascension and Duskmantle Guildmage's first ability go infinite with Mind Crank on their own, so long as you deal at least 1 damage to a player or mill a player at least 1 card, causing the opponent to enter a mill a card, take a damage infinite loop. Blasting Station is a nice sacrifice and damage outlet for these combos. Blasting Station is an artifact for 3 of any color with an activated ability of tap, sacrifice a creature. Blasting Station deals 1 damage to any target, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may untap Blasting Station. For our last combo using Zellix, you can create a loop using Grinding Station, an artifact for 2 of any color with an activated ability of tap, sacrifice an artifact, target player mills 3 cards, and whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, you may untap Grinding Station. Then you want to have Mycosynth Lattice on the field, which is an artifact that turns all permanents into artifacts. Now each horror is an artifact that we can sacrifice with the Grinding Station, which will allow you to mill an opponent 3 cards with each activation, increasing the chances of hitting a creature from the mill. There are a few other really nice synergy cards I recommend using with Zellix. The first is the Haunt of High Tower, a 3/3 legendary vampire for 4 and 2 black. It has flying and lifelink and says whenever the Haunt of High Tower attacks, defending player discards a card. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, put a +1/+1 counter on the Haunt of High Tower. This creature will get really huge really fast in a Zellix deck and can be a great finisher. I also highly recommend including Undead Alchemist in every Zellix deck. This is a 4/2 zombie for 3 and a blue. It says, if a zombie you control would deal combat damage to a player, instead, that player mills that many cards, and whenever a creature card is put into an opponent's graveyard from their library, exile that card and create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. This is a replacement in case Zellix is removed from the battlefield. Plus, with it in play along with Zellix, each milled creature will create both a zombie and a horror creature token. Clones are a great way to get extra effects from your synergy combo pieces, so I would throw them into a Zellix deck. You can also improve consistency by using cards that make players play with the top cards of their libraries revealed, like Wizened Snitches or Lantern of Insight, so you know which player, if any, has a creature on the top of their library. Finally, I really recommend protecting Zellix, as this card is the key component to all these combos, unless you have Undead Alchemist in play. Use your boots or counterspells to your advantage. As a final note, cards like Leyline of the Void or Rest in Peace can cause a problem with some of the death or the put into a graveyard triggers. They will not, however, stop mill triggers. Make sure you put in cards to stop these graveyard hate cards like bounce effects or enchantment removal. I hope you enjoyed some of the powerful combos Zellix has up their sleeve, and I hope you get lots of wins with your decks. Thank you for joining me. Please leave a comment to let me know your thoughts if any of these combos helped you or there were any combos I didn't include. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. It really helps me out. Once again, I am Mama Magic Fantastic, and as always, be happy, be true, be you.